Ghost of Tsushima is such an anomaly because it comes out in an era where everyone's making remakes and remasters. They create this whole new IP out of thin air. And they were like, yo, I kind of want to make something about a samurai. They do that. You look at the games that are coming out recently. Dude, Spider-Man came out in 2018. 4 years later, in 2022, they make a remaster. Dude, it's not even been half a decade. We don't need a remaster. And they're going to charge you the full price after that. You know, I just bought this game. And then you have Last of Us Part 2. And they're remastering Last of Us Part 2, which came out in 2020. Dude, just 4 years later, they remastered it. It makes no sense. Last of Us 1 remastered looks good now. Everyone's just going with the safe option. You know, this IP sells, so let's just make more of this. And then Ghost of Tsushima's like, nah, bro, we're coming in new. We're coming in hot. Buy us. Now, I say all of this, but my first experience with Ghost of Tsushima is I got to the part where I meet Yuna for the first time, and then you're sneaking around, and then I dropped the game. I know, it's a contradiction, okay? I get it, but hear me out. I was playing Elden Ring before Ghost of Tsushima. So you can't just play Elden Ring and then go off on your day and just play another game, you know? It's like a drug. You gotta come off it easy. You can't just cold turkey it. You're gonna kill yourself. You know, the next few days, I was just spending my time looking out the window, hoping I see the Erd tree. It's like, once you play a FromSoft game, you can't just go and play any other game just like that. I know, as I'm saying all this, Ghost of Tsushima is not just any other game, okay? This is a freaking excellent game. If I could find myself from 6 months ago and see that guy who dropped it at that part, I'd be like, hey, what are you doing, dude? What do you have better going on in your life? What, you living your life? You're looking after your future? Shut up. Tsushima needs you. They need the ghost. Get in there. It's just that part where you meet Yuna and you're just sneaking around, trailing while sneaking around. It feels like Ass Creed again, you know? And I kind of didn't like that. You start off the game on such a high note. You know, you're in the middle of the war, and then, boom, you're there, sneaking around in the bushes. What's going on here? But then you look at it from a different perspective. After you beat the game, you're like, oh, they're trying to set it up that this guy is the ghost. He's about to abandon his samurai way and become a ghost. That's why they go straight from this bombastic battle to now sneaking in the bushes. And when you look back at it, you're like, wow, that's a pretty cool choice. But at the time, that's not what I was thinking. I was just like, dude, I don't want to play this anymore. It's gonna suck ass now. But then I ended up playing it. I pushed myself and I played it. And boy, I'm glad I did. Dude, I can have fun just roaming around the world, just looking, taking in the beautiful scenery, the freaking pampas grass. I don't know if that's what it's called, but pampas it is now. But yeah, I was just riding around in the horse, just going around town, seeing what's up, seeing the new neighborhoods, seeing some guys on the streets who might need some help. They have these guys who will be in a tough spot in the middle of the road, and they give you a quest to follow. This doesn't sound that revolutionary, you know, it's a samurai thing. It's not like that. But the fact is, it's the packaging, the way they deliver it is so samurai, you know? The guy goes, oh, samurai, I need your help. And you're like, what? I'm samurai? It's kind of fun. You're living the samurai fantasy. And then as you're riding around town, just going wherever you want to go, where the wind takes you. If you're playing the director's cut, dude, the haptic feedback is insane. You can play the flute and change the weather depending on the song you play. And if you play the flute, the vibrations on the flute that you would feel in real life, they've implemented that into the vibrations of the controller. So it starts to feel like you're holding the flute that Jin's playing in the game. You ride on a horse and then you go over a wooden bridge and the controller vibrates in that same rickety way that it would if you were standing on that wooden bridge. And then you go over a stone bridge and it feels more of a controlled vibration. It's so cool how there's implementing these subtle changes in the rumble. And then there's the classic pulling the bow, all that stuff. They've implemented it the best so far, I think. I know Returnal's got some competition here, but I don't think it does. And I mean, this game is just gorgeous. Just look at it. I cannot stop watching the reactions to the title drop scene. Dude, it is amazing. The way the music just swells when he leaves the forest. This is a masterpiece, dude. Oh my god. They made a title drop scene artistic. And then you get to the story, right? This story is based off of the first Mongol invasion that Tsushima faced. And it's not just that, it's the first time the Mongols and samurais ever fought. And you know what's crazy about this? They've never adapted the story into media before, which makes no sense. It's a historical moment. This is the first time the samurais and the Mongols met. Two different clashing ideas meeting and they're fighting for the first time. And it's never been adapted before. It's just weird to think that it took all the way up until 2020 for it to be adapted. You know, you hear a lot about how the director is so inspired by the Kurosawa films And I mean, I watched some of the clips from Kurosawa films, and dude, there is so much inspiration and love in this game for Kurosawa's film. When Khotun Khan is introduced for the first time, you look at him and you're like, wow, maybe he's not normal. I mean, he's invading an island, he's killing innocents, but he seems like a jolly old fella. The guy comes up to him in the samurai way, challenging him to a duel, and this guy just shoves some oil on him and burns him right there without even talking to him. This guy is so unnerving and cold and calculating that you're like, oh, there's something off about him. This guy's a psycho of some sort. If you've watched Attack on Titan, there's a scene towards the end of season 3 and Dinah Fritz is about to be turned into a Titan. Khotun Khan reminds me of that soldier that was talking about how Eldians are the problem in this world. That's the kind of personality he has, but made into a grand person, you know? And since this is a Western studio, Sucker Punch, creating this Japanese setting game, it's made with English in mind. So the voice acting in English is so much better than the Japanese one. I know, that's a cardinal sin. Okay, I get it. I won't watch Dragon Ball Z in subbed. I don't really like dubbed that much. You know, I like Sean Schemmel, but I just like hearing Japanese. You know, look at this. You don't think I'm a weeb? But this game, dude, go play it in English. I mean, the delivery, there's so much emotion. It's not just the lip sync that's better in English. It's the delivery of the emotions through the sentences. I mean, they made this game with Japanese actors who speak English natively. This game is made first with English in mind, and then it was translated to Japanese. So I think play the original way, because that's where you get the original stuff. What a line. And you get to hear the samurai accents. I mean, you get to hear them either way, but it's kind of fun hearing it in English as well. You'll hear those random people talk, oh, samurai, if you could please help me. I am in some trouble. I don't know, that didn't sound that samurai at the end. That sounded more Arab. Anyways, and this is a bit of a I mean, it is a spoiler, it's at the end, but it's when Lord Shimura and Jin have to fight at the end, and he's delivering this line.
The ghost was an outlaw.
That scene always gets to me, man. It's such a beautiful story. What a beautiful game. Guys, if you don't even like action combat, I don't know why you wouldn't. What kind of freak are you? You must be one of those furry people. But if you don't, just play it for the story. Set it up to story setting, you know, game journalist settings. And so you can just play it on that. Just experience the story. It is amazing. Dude, they go so hard even on the side quests. There's so much development, and these side quests aren't just fluff pieces where you're just like, oh, collect that, collect this. I mean, they have that. Don't worry, they have that. I'll get into that. But the main side quest with the main side characters, there's so much development that goes on there. One of my favorite side quests is of the Tomoe quest line. I mean, the ending of that was kind of underwhelming, I thought, but it is still great. So I just love how all in on the samurai theme they are. You know, you can go around the world and find a spot to compose haikus, just like a samurai would. And then you could go to a hot spring and then reflect on your samurai code or your uncle or the enemy. You know, you're just doing all these samurai stuff. There's also duels in the wild that you can find and you have to kill the guy. You know, there's so much detail into this whole samurai thing. And one of my favorite moments is when you're scaling a temple. So they have this temple system where you can get an accessory that gives you a buff of some sort by climbing this temple. And the reason you have to climb this temple is because the path to the temple, the normal path, is broken. So you have to find a creative way around it. And one of my favorite temples to scale was the Stone Temple. One of the reasons I love the Uncharted series is because it's like that Indiana Jones vibe. You know, you're just going around the world, exploring places no one's ever been, or places where there's buried history. It's just so much fun, and it felt like that. And the combat as well. It's so samurai. You know, you have different stances. You have the water, earth, and some other shit I can't remember right now. These stances, they work in different situations, and you know, one stance is better against certain enemies and then the other stance is better against certain enemies. It just depends on the situation. They kind of have a twist with the combat system. They don't have a lock-on specifically. It's just kind of where you're moving towards is where it will pick an enemy close to that and hit that guy. So they kind of have the zoomed out camera, and just so you can see more people at once. Now that sounds fun. It sounds cool. It kind of reminds me of the Arkham combat system. But the implementation, oh my god, the camera is ass, dude. There's so many times where I've called an enemy to a standoff and I can't even see anything. There's a tree in front of me because the camera is just that far out, captures everything before the guys. It makes no sense. I don't get why they're doing it like that. That is my only complaint. Usually I don't care about camera mishaps, you know? I can adjust to it. It doesn't bother me that much. But this game, oh my God, the camera is horrible. That is the one thing they messed up on big time, the camera. But even still, the combat has so much personality. You really do feel like a samurai and the ghost all in one. And then the enemies, they have so much detail into them. They really dive deep into their research. They looked into what the Mongols used to do while they would fight. One of the things I remember them talking about was how every time a Mongol would pull an arrow on the bow, they would yell out something, and they captured that exact same thing. And it's kind of funny now, it becomes a signal for you to be like, oh, hey, there's someone about to shoot at me. But it's still cool how they dive that far into the research, you know? They were just like, let's capture this, let's capture that, let's capture that. Some Mongols will have falcons with them because that's how the Mongols used to ride, you know? They would have falcons with them, which is the coolest shit ever, dude. You just have an animal companion that's helping you fight. Yo, I might be on the Mongol side. And then you look at the details of the blood splatters. Depending on the way you cut the person, that's where the splatter will go. And then if you stab someone, it just kind of goes behind like his back. Dude, it's so cool how much detail is in this game. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it, the guy in the closet. There's a guy they had an interview with. He's been a historian for more than 40 years. And this guy is like, yeah, you guys did a good job. So, you know, it's some good stuff here. Unlike some other games that might be coming out soon. I'm just saying. Oh, they have another thing where, so they have these legendary weapons and they have a story tied behind them. But the way you find them is through solving these stories. Their stories are kind of delivered to you as if it was a quest, and you have to complete the quest. And these quests are based off of real Japanese folklores. They have these bedtime stories that they would tell Japanese kids, and that's what they're basing it off of. You know, it's really cool how much research they did, because when you do that much research, you kind of want to just capture everything into the game. You're like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. But the thing is, you look at the way the directors approach the game, right? At first, in this interview, they say they wanted to dive into the code of the samurai code. You know, they have 8 tenets. I don't know what that's about, but they have 8 tenets, and they were like, we really want to talk about this. But then when they exposed the game to some of the beta testers, they realized that, oh, everyone's getting kind of confused. Like, I don't know why they thought gamers would care about codes. So then they were like, okay, you know what? We do want to do this, but it's not looking like it's a good idea. People are getting confused. Let's go another direction. So they simplified it. They were like, we're not going to dive into the samurai code, but the struggle with it, we're going to simplify it to respect and honor. They pivoted completely from what they wanted to something they thought that would deliver and that people wanted, because they knew, okay, what's our direction? We want to make a game, you know, a samurai game that people want to play. And that's what it requires. So that's what we're going to do. They're not just injecting shit into this. Like, oh, I kind of want to make a fat superhero. It's like, how are you going to do superhero things if you're fat? You can't. You know? They have so much research that even when they do take liberties into how the history played out, like they have this machinery that shoots arrows, but that machinery actually is invented 75 years later from the game's time. But the fact is, even when they do take these liberties, they know that they're doing it. They're engaging in it. You know, they're not just stumbling upon it. They're not just like, oh, okay, this looks cool, let's just add it. And there's a freaking telephone. Now they have a telephone in Samurai Era. What's going on, dude? They know when it takes place, and they're like, okay, so do you think we should do it? It's 75 years later in the future, but do you think we should do it? I'm like, does it make the game fun? Let's put it in. That's the kind of mentality you need to have as a game dev. You need to make it fun. I mean, I'm not saying they always do the right thing. They do have their mistakes here and there. The camera for the combat is tragic. They also have this thing where in the interview he says, we made it open world so that the player would have the freedom of choice. They could do whatever they wanted. You know, they have the power of freedom. But then the game will like siphon you into playing this one way without any experimentation. Like there are some levels where you have to approach the combat through a stealthy way. Or some other times where they just blow your ass out wide in the open and you're like fighting 50 guys all at once. Well, there's not that much freedom there. But the thing is, they get so many things right that you're like, okay, I don't give a shit about this. You did this. I like that. I like you, dude. Hey, you know, it's cool because now we got the Ghost of Yotei announcement. Look, I get it, guys. It's a woman. It's hard to relate to a woman lead. Fine. But hear me out. Just think about this. Think about what we might be getting. All right? Look at this. Just imagine this scene in Yotei. Let them cook. I'm telling you, let them cook.